Hey drummers, it's Rob Litton here from drumstheword.com, bringing you a full video song lesson. This song has been suggested many times over on my Facebook page as well as here on YouTube, and I'm happy to give you a mini song lesson for the song Superstition by Stevie Wonder, drummed by, Stevie Wonder. He played his own drums on this recording. And it was a real treat exploring this song for you. I was lucky enough to find an isolated drum track on YouTube giving me great detail into exactly what he played. And what I've got for you, most of the song is just improvised. There's so much improvisation going on. We've got those classic drum fills as well. So it was going to be impossible for me to transcribe the whole thing. Well, not impossible, it's just been too long a lesson, too big a transcription job. So what I've got for you are my favourite sections, starting off with two of the main grooves, and we can sort of hear how he sort of improvises with the hi-hat. And then we've got all of those great drum fills as well, the most important ones, the most distinctive ones that stick out. Plus some cool ride cymbal stuff as well, which he plays halfway through the song. So don't forget to download the free PDF that comes with this lesson. 2 pages. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sections I'm going to be going over with you today. My favourite parts, the most important parts. And if you could do me the favour of liking and subscribing and commenting here on YouTube and on Facebook, then that would be really great. I really appreciate that. And you might also want to check out my website, drumstheword.com, where I offer you full video song lessons. I teach you a song from start to finish. Not just this lesson where I teach you the favourite bits, but a whole song. The full transcription as well is included. And I've got over 300 songs on the website, so you might want to check that out as well. Let's crack on with the first part, though, that occurs right at the beginning of the song. So the first thing to say is that all the 16th notes are swung in this. We're sort of feeling 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a, rather than, which is just straight single strokes, we're swinging them. So all our 16th notes are going to have this sort of swing lilt, and Stevie was really good at making this sound half swung, half straight. So it's mostly swung, but there are some sections where he plays it kind of straight, it's sort of in between. All these great drummers, including Stevie, it turns out, are able to sort of feel this in between sort of quasi swing mode, which you get throughout this song. So the first section, we've got 4 bars of groove, but we've also got that classic drum intro, and you might not know how to count it in. So the snare drum starts on beat 3. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and a 1. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and a 1. You can hear the swing there on the and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and a 1. And notice how he goes into the hi-hat. He doesn't go into a crash cymbal as most drummers would. We start on the hi-hat. And basically for the first section of the song, although he starts to do these extra bass drum notes, he's basically just playing 4 on the floor. That basically means we're playing bass drum on all 4 beats, snare drum on beats 2 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and... But Stevie for the first part starts to swing the hi-hat. Now, I'm pretty sure, in fact I'm certain he plays most of these swung hi-hat patterns one-handed. The reason I know that is because you can hear the hi-hat falling down with the snare drum on beats 2 and 4 occasionally. If he was playing it like that, for example, where my right hand came down to the snare drum, you wouldn't hear the hi-hat being played with it because we're playing single stroke. But you do hear the hi-hat falling on beats 2 and 4, so I'm pretty sure he plays it one-handed. You, of course, can experiment. If you want to mix it up, play some of the notes, some of the hi-hat swing notes one-handed. Feel free to move your left hand up, though, to help you play some of the more advanced, the longer rolls, especially when there's no snare drum around them. Then you can do that. What I'm saying is that, do your own thing, but I'm going to be playing this one-handed, as I believe Steve would have as well, and I'm pretty sure that's how we did it on the recording. So, bar by bar, we've got 1 and 2 and a 3 E and 1 and 2 and a 3 E and 4 and a 1 and 2 and a 3 E and 4 and a. The second bar, 1 and 2 and a 3 and a 4 E and. There's an example of where you do hear the hi-hat falling down on beat 4, so we couldn't have been playing it double-handed. 1 and 2 and a 3 and a 4 E and. The next bar, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 E and a 1. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 E and a 1. And then the fourth bar, 1 and 2 and a 3 and 4 E and a. 1 and 2 and a 3 and 4 E and a. So lots and lots of improvisations here. And the good thing about these first 4 bars is it shows you all the different variations, pretty much, that Stevie throws in. You can sort of see how trying to transcribe this would have been a real headache because he improvises every single bar. Every bar is slightly different. So if you're playing along this song with your band, then you would be expected to improvise as well and sort of throw in your own swing actions. So let me just play those bars for you slowly. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and a 1 and 2 and a 3 and 4 and a 1 and 2 and a 3 and a 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and 2 and a 3 and 4 and a 1. And now let's hear it played up to speed without a microphone on so you can hear just the drums nice and clearly. Here we go. So these next 4 bars occur around 18 seconds into the song, and I chose them because it's a transition period where Stevie sort of goes from the basic bass drum on all 4 beats to start playing this 1, a 2, a 3, this sort of samba pattern on the bass drum, 1E and a 2E and a 3. So you can sort of hear how he goes from the quarter notes to the samba kind of bass drum pattern, and it sort of then sticks. He sort of plays that samba pattern most of the time, although he does improvise, he does play single bass drums occasionally. So we've got the first bar, and we've got a drum fill at the end of it. 1 and a 2 and a 3. So just a simple bass drum on all 3 beats. 1 and a 2 and a 3. Then, and on the snare drum, 4E and the bass drum falls on 4. 4E and. You can really hear the swing on the snare drum there. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and 4E and a 1. Into a crash cymbal, second bar. We get an open hi-hat. Stevie does this quite a bit. He goes from a crash cymbal to the open hi-hat. Now, also, I want to point out that his hi-hat is very washy on this recording. It's sort of naturally his hi-hat's foot's moving ever so slightly. He's creating his own sort of very subtle openings and closings. And I didn't want to really make this a nightmare to read, so I didn't include any of those opening and closings because they're so subtle and it's like a feel thing. But occasionally you do get a very obvious open hi-hat, and I have included those. And this is the case here where bar 2, 1 and 2 into the snare drum close, 1 and 2. Then he starts introducing this samba bass drum, but he plays it over the top, not every time, of the and a 3 pattern. So we get and a 3 and boom boom and a 3. And then we'll go to the and a 4. You notice he leaves it out. And a 4 and a 4 back to bass drum just on beat 4. Then at the end of the bar, and a 1 without any hi-hat over the top of it. So that bar slowly, 1 and 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. Into bar 3, 1 and 2, so 2 beats are just bass drum on 1 and 2, 1 and 2. Then we get the samba, and a 3 and a 3. Then without the hi-hat, and a 4 and a 4. And then a little bit tricky this if you're not used to it. Comes out to the snare drum to play and a 1. But we get the bass drum on the The samba pattern is played underneath it. And a 1, and a 1, and a 1. So that third bar, 1 and 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. Quite tricky to line up the hands with the feet there. The fourth bar, we sort of then go into full samba mode. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. With the hi-hat alternating between the two swing patterns. So let me play those 4 bars for you. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and 4 and a 1 and 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 1. And let's hear it played up to speed. So then we get to everyone's favourite drum fill from the song, the first big drum fill you hear, and it's a beauty. It's a doozy as well. Stevie, I think I'm right in saying this. I think I'm qualified to say this as well. Stevie screws up. I mean, it's all in time, but it's sloppy the way he plays it. And you hear it later in his playing, especially when you've got the isolated drum track. There's some sloppy drumming going on. It feels great and it works for the song perfectly, but he's obviously a singer, keyboardist first, even though he is still a great drummer. A lot of people will find his drumming very, very difficult to replicate, as we're probably going to see in this lesson. But it is some sloppy playing going on. This is the first sort of where it stands out a bit, this drum fill. It almost sounds like he's almost getting it, and then it's kind of improvised. But you'll see what I mean if you listen to it. You can sort of hear how it's sort of pushing and pulling in time. What I'm saying is it's not perfect, but it still works, it's still great. So I've got the transcription for you. I'm not going to be able to replicate that sort of rushed, hurried feel he puts into it because he's struggling a bit perhaps, but we try and play it metronomically correct and we get this. So it starts off with 1, oh by the way, this occurs at 1 minute 14, but you've got that on the transcription if you print it out in front of you. 1, a 2, so we've got the samba, 1 and a 2, then we get and a 3E, and a 3E, the bass drum then plays on the a 3, and a 3E and a, 3E and a, just before this beat, this 16th note triplets on beat 4, and these triplets fill up the whole of beat 4. He simply goes around the drums like this. I say simply, it's a great linear lick this. I love this a lot. This is so much fun to play. It's one of those licks that I learned. It's a 5-stroke roll. Not 5-stroke, it's a single stroke, 5 single stroke roll with the bass drum at the end allowing the left hand time to come back to the snare drum. So we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 notes with the bass drum at the end, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 into the snare drum. How cool is that? It allows you to play that lick. So we get 1 and a 2 and a 3E, a 4 and a 1, 4 and a, that's how I count it. 1, a 2, a 3E, a 4 and a 1. Into the second bar, where we get this, this is where I sort of feel like he's kind of catching up with himself. 1E, 1E and a, 1E and a, miss over beat 2, come out to the high tom with the left hand, 2E and a, 2E and, sorry, E and a, 2E and a, 2E and a, closing on beat 3 where the hands then come out to the snare drum, 3E and a, and then 4E and a. And he puts out a bass drum in at the end which goes into a crash cymbal, 4E and a 1, as we go into the next bar. So, those 2 bars slowly, 1, a 2, a 3E, a 4 and a 1E, messed it up. I'm going to keep these mistakes in though because you're going to find exactly the same. This is tricky stuff to be able to read. I won't count it out loud, that's kind of put me off. I've got the rhythm in my head, which is the whole point of counting, is you get it in your head, then you don't have to count out loud anymore. So let me play it properly, slowly. There we go. So now let's play it up to speed so you can hear it in context. So this next lick on page 2 occurs at 2 minute 12, and it's another example of that sloppiness I was talking about earlier on, the way he sort of plays a little bit kind of messy, and it also has a mistake in it. Now I'm pretty sure it's a mistake. He didn't mean to hit the rim of a tom, but on beat 3, as I've noted on the music, it's actually acrostic you hear. I'm going to play it how I think he was supposed to be playing it because later on he repeats this lick almost exactly note for note, and he moves the note that he misses, and we hear a rim being hit. It's actually being played on the floor tom later on. That's the last one we'll be going over in this lesson if you want to skip forward, the very last one at 325. So I'm going to play it how I think he was supposed to be playing it rather than playing the mistake, which is definitely a mistake. He mishits a drum and hits a rim instead. We'll let him off though, considering he's blind. So what we got here is this really cool lick. 30-second notes though, and to count this in swung sixteenths is a nightmare. So I'm just going to sort of feel it, and you can sort of copy the sound of it. But we get between the floor tom and high tom, this sort of bottom triplet kind of thing, but it's not, it's in sixteenths. We get 1E and 1E and 1E and 1E and floor tom there, staying on the floor tom, 1E and straight into beat 2, 2, and we come up to the high tom then, 2E and 2E and so 2E and 2E and then get ready. We're going to go to the floor tom, which is the rim, which noted on the chart as a rim, but I'm going to play it on the floor tom again. I think that's what you're supposed to be playing. 3E and 3E and 3E and a 4, 3E and a 4. Then your hand's going to come up to your hi-hat over here with the left hand, mine's over here. E and a 1. So a real nightmare to sort of read this fast and count it. sort of what I found the best way to do it is sort of get it into muscle memory. So I'm not going to try and play that whole bar for you slowly. I'm probably going to make a few mistakes though. So yeah, so let me get it into my head first. You're going to see me sort of work it out as I go through this lesson. I'm probably playing the floor tom. I found like breaking it up into sections. Just playing beat 3 there. I'll play it slowly, that was pretty much up to speed. There we go, finally got it. You can see how you sort of break it up and you get each part on its own and then you sort of put it together. So you can be forgiven for making lots of mistakes as trying to read this off the page. It is very difficult to read exactly off the page. So let's now hear it played up to speed properly. Okay, so this next section, of the next two examples in fact, are 2 bars that are next to each other. Before I'd split them up because they're slightly different to each other. And really what I'm focusing on is not the drum fill at the end, which is relatively simple around the toms and drums. It's actually the ride cymbal pattern and the ghost note pattern that Stevie plays. It's a classic idea, this. The first bar, which occurs at 2:24, without the bass drum underneath, which is basically playing the Samba pattern, we're playing this. 1 E and a 2 E and. 1 E and a 2 E and. Then from beat 3, 3 E and a 4 E and. He plays over the snare drum there, the ghost note. These are all ghost notes, by the way, that's why they're written in brackets. He plays them naturally quiet. If you're playing this long, then you could play them as normal volume. But if you listen to the recording, when we get to the second bar around beat 2, you can hear that suddenly the snare drum turns up and he starts playing them as solid snare drum notes. So these on the recording are played quietly, so he's really tapping it. But it's basically this pattern. And he develops it in the next example I'm about to show you. But back to this example, 1 E and a 2 E and, 3 E and a 4 E and. Again, he plays over the and a 4 E and a 4 E and for the second half of the bar. Underneath it, which makes it even trickier, if you're not used to that type of pattern, is the Samba bass drum. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. I messed up there. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1. That was it. The second bar, 1 E and a 2, and then goes back to normal volume. 1 E and a 2. Notice that he doesn't play a 2. It's 1 E and a 2 and a 3, 2 and a 3, and then the simple drum fill at the end. 3 E and a 4 E and a. Quite cool though, because he goes 3 E and then 4 E and leaving his left hand time to come back to the snare drum. Classic idea that ending on the snare drum with the of beat 4. So let me try and play these 2 bars slowly. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1. Not bad, that sounds right in my ears. So now let's play it up to speed for you. So literally after the last example, we then get the next 2 bars, which occurs at 2:29, and he develops the hand pattern. It's like he's sinking into this pattern over 4 bars. He sort of finally gets, I think this is what he was supposed to be playing. Well, not supposed to, there's no supposed to in drumming, it still works, but I feel like this is the pattern he's practiced a million times and he sort of gets into it, where the bass drum pattern changes to go with the ride cymbal more. And the hand pattern, again with ghost notes, actually stays the same for the first and second half of the bar. So we get 1 E and 2 E and The extension there is the snare drum on the of 2 there, leading us back into beat 3 where it repeats. 3 E and 4 E and So we get 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and Underneath that, the bass drum is playing just before the snare drum on 2 and 4 with a single bass drum, 1 E and 1 E and 2. But then after the snare drums on 2 and 4, we get the bass drum follows the ride cymbal, 2 E and. Again, this is, I should have mentioned in the previous example, he's kind of playing it up on the bell here, so forgive me for not mentioning that if you're a little bit confused. The last example at 2:24, he's sort of playing it sort of almost on a crash cymbal. It's very, very light crash cymbal. And then for this example, he goes to a heavier crash cymbal, or even the bell of the ride cymbal. It's very hard to hear exactly what he's playing on, or to determine what he's playing on. But it kind of feels like the bell, but you could just play it on the ride cymbal normally. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to play it here, and then for the examples, I'll play it on the bell, just because that's a little bit loud. So let me play that bar for you. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. The second bar, it continues 1 E and a 2, but then 2 is normal volume again. 1 E and a 2 E and 1 E and a 2 E and then out of that drum into the drum fill, 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Again, same idea. He ends with the snare drum on the a 3 E and a 4 E and a. And the hands naturally go around the drums that way by leading with the right hand. So those 2 bars slowly. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. And now up to speed with the bell of the ride cymbal being the main focus. So this last drum fill occurs at 3:25, and the second bar is basically the same as the example I gave at 2:12. It's exactly the same rhythm, except with a slightly different orchestration, and it doesn't include that miss hit. So this is what I think he was trying to play earlier on. But we go to the first bar first, which has a different drum fill in it. We start off with 1 and a 2, that Samba bass drum pattern underneath the open hi-hat, and a 2, and then we come in with a line of snare drum notes, a 3E. The and of 3 and 4 are ghosted, but the left hand stays normal, and a 4, and a 4, and then the hands naturally come up to the high tom and floor tom, 4E and, 4E and. Lovely little roll down the drums, toms there. So we get 1 and a 2, and a 3E and a 4E and. 1 and a 2, and a 3E and a 4E and. Now we come to the drum fill again. So again with the counting, it's going to sort of throw me off a little bit. I've sort of got the rhythm in my head, and when you speed it up, it sort of naturally flows a bit better. The rhythm is exactly the same, it's just the orchestration. So this time, instead of playing at the beginning where he played between the 2 toms, now he plays between the snare drum and the high tom. But we still get 1 E and a. The right hand still moves to the floor tom, 1 E and a. Straight into beat 2, 2 E and, 2 E and, 2 E and a, 2 E and a. Then we get ready. This is where the miss hit occurred before. We're going to move to the floor tom, 3 E and a 4 and an open hi-hat on its own without the bass drum into a crash cymbal. 3 E and a 4 and. But after that, beat 2, get ready with that floor tom note. You'll see what I mean as I play it around a few times. I'll probably make a few mistakes here. Surprised myself. Try that a bit slower though for you. No, sorry. No. I'm getting the rhythm in my head. And at this sort of tempo, it's kind of hard to feel those 30-second notes of swung. When he speeds it up, he's not thinking of those 30-second notes. They're kind of almost quasi-triplets. He's not really, he's feeling where the bass drum is falling rather than where the hands are falling. He's leading into the bass drum. The bass drum falls on the E of 1, beat 2, the of 3. And that's what I think that's what he's sort of focusing on more, where that bass drum is landing, not where he's starting these little fast flurries of notes. Sorry. I'm going to keep these mistakes in, so forgive me. But hopefully you'll forgive yourself if you're finding this tricky yourself as well. There we go. At that tempo, I can sort of get it. Anyway, that was how it's. Let's play the 2 bars together before we play up to speed. 1 and a 2 and a 3 E and a 4 E and. Wow, there you go. So I actually played it in the end, but of course I didn't count out loud, so forgive me for that as well. Again, just to make it clear that the counting is really just to get it off the page. Once you've got the counting, once you've got the rhythm, you don't really have to count it anymore. Okay, let's finally hear those 2 bars played up to speed properly. So there you go, I hope you had fun. That was a tricky lesson for me to teach you, but a lot of fun. Part of the fun for me was going to the original drum track and listening to exactly what Stevie was doing. You can find it on YouTube. In fact, I might place a link on my website somewhere if you want to watch the original or listen to the original recording. It's a real treat, and you can sort of hear that sloppiness I keep mentioning, perhaps too many times, because it's still a great drum performance. Don't forget to download the free PDF that came with this lesson, both pages. Give this video a share, like and comment if you appreciated it. And also check out my website, drumstheword.com. And what I'm currently offering is $97 is a full year subscription to the whole website. You sign up to the website for $97. You get access to every single full video song lesson I've ever recorded. That's over 300 famous songs now, where I teach you a song from start to finish. Every single note, every single bar from start to finish. You get the full PDF drum chart that accompanies each lesson. And like I said, I've got over 300 famous songs now. As a thank you for signing up, I also give you access to hundreds of little videos teaching you famous beats, fills and drum solos. 3 ebooks I've written over the years containing hundreds more famous beats, fills and solos. And then over the year of your subscription, you also gain instant online access to all the new material I upload for my members, all the full song lessons. And I record every week unless I'm ill or on holiday. So you've got tons and tons of cool stuff to look forward to over the whole year of your subscription. But if you've got any questions about that, feel free to email me, rob@drumstheword.com. Have fun until our next drum lesson together. Toodle pip and happy drumming to you.